Welcome to this presentation where we will discuss employment and working conditions as determinants of health. In this presentation, we will discuss the following learning outcomes. We will explain how employment, unemployment, and health interrelate. We will discuss the health implications of recent changes in the labor market. We will also discuss how on-the-job experience affects health and well-being. We will assess how policy responses to employment and working conditions impact on the population. Pause and take a few seconds to look at the instructions on how to watch the video. The centrality of employment to adult health is mainly linked to personal identity, social networks, new skills, a sense of mastery and control, and changes in behaviors. What is the relationship between health and jobs? Research have reported that people in stable, well-paying jobs are healthier than people in unstable or poorly paying work. Being employed promotes health. Patterns of employment reflect and reinforce social gradient. We do know that the opposite can also happen where people in high demanding jobs suffer because of stress, because of the demand of the job. We also do know that in some jobs, people who are exposed to unhealthy environments can be affected in terms of conditions at work. Let's look at this example on level of occupation and life expectancy. In the figure, we can see that people in higher paying jobs are more likely to live longer than people in lower paying jobs. How does work affect health? Take a few seconds to look at this diagram that indicates how work affects health. The physical aspect of the work and the workplace, the psychological aspect of the work and how work is organized, and the work-related resources and opportunities will all have an impact on the physical and mental well-being of an individual. In terms of the workplace and health behavior, some workplaces forces people to be more sedentary. Research has demonstrated a link between sedentary work and negative health outcome. Some workplaces also encourages bad eating habits. For example, eating at the workstation and buying bad food at the cafeteria and so on. The following figure illustrates a vicious cycle of health and jobs. For example, a person with a high level of education is more likely to get a high quality job with a higher income. This will increase his social networks, and then the person may also feel some level of control over the work, and the cycle continues. In this figure, we can see that people with low income jobs tend to work monotonous work. They often experience new health problems due to adverse working conditions. Also, the people tend to have limited control over their work, and the cycle continues. Chronic strain and excessive demand that are not compensated by social support contribute to isostrain, which is linked to metabolic syndrome. However, stress is not only about work-related stress. For example, less educated people are more likely to stress about financial issues, while more educated people are more likely to stress about family matters and workload and so on. Let's briefly talk about unemployment. Unemployment refers to those persons who were not employed and had taken steps to look for a job or to start a business and were available to take up a job had it been offered. Now, the main hiccup lies with those persons who have been unemployed for longer periods and still do not find any form of employment. Unemployment and health. There are direct and indirect effects of unemployment. Some factors will buffer the effect. Unemployment increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases, use of prescription drugs, smoking, and alcohol consumption. The negative effects of unemployment increases with the frequency of periods of unemployment and the duration of each period of unemployment, demonstrating a clear cumulative effect. Unemployment may exert a negative influence on health by reducing access to needed material resources. Long-term unemployment causes significant mental and material stress for those affected and their families. It is also of particular concern for policymakers as high rates of long-term unemployment indicate that labor markets are operating inefficiently. Once a person has been in a long-term unemployment, the probability of finding a job declines, leaving them at risk of being permanently detached from the labor market. Unemployment does not only lead to loss of income, but also leads to loss of socialization outlets, loss of social networks, loss of sense of control, and loss of personal identity. Take a few seconds to look at these slides with studies that looked into unemployment and health. Most of the time, official unemployment figures do not reflect how many people are unemployed. To count as unemployed, you must be recently out of work, actively seeking work, available to take a job if one should be offered to you. There are those also called hidden unemployed. These are long-term unemployed people, those who look after a child or an aging parent. These people are not included in the unemployment statistics, and this makes the numbers very skewed. This graph indicates the level of unemployment in developed countries such as Canada, the US, and the UK. Take a few seconds to look at this graph. In South Africa, the level of unemployment has been increasing for some time. Take a few seconds to look at this graph indicating the level of unemployment in South Africa. Governments should improve the following employment-related policies. Unemployment insurance. This is to help those who lose their jobs. Education and training for the workforce. This is to upskill the workforce, improving working conditions and employee benefits, improve shift work and commuting, improve the wages and benefits of employees. In recent years, there has been changes in the nature of employment. Globalization and the transition to the knowledge economy have had drastic effects on work. Commitment to economic growth, globalization, and the emphasis on building a knowledge economy creates steadily growing pressure for increased productivity. This means doing more with less, greater work intensity, increased hours of work, and decreased wages and benefits. In terms of the current trends in employment, globalization and transition to the knowledge economy has led to international competition, that is increased productivity, increased intensity of work, increased hours of work, and downwards wage pressure. Just-in-time and flexible production, which means increased part-time, temporary and casual employment, and more shift work. The knowledge economy has led to more projects, contract work, less continuous production. Large-scale labor-intensive work in stable environments have been replaced by service industry jobs. We have a divided job market with high-end jobs and low-end jobs. We have many more low-end than high-end jobs. Those who are less skilled have been marginalized into unstable, poorly paid jobs. In terms of theoretical considerations, employment and workplace can be used to test hypotheses for materialist and psychological traditions. The impact of employment can be assessed at macro, intermediate, and individual level. It is important to consider individual level, household level, and community level variables associated with paid work. In summary, paid employment is one of the central features of adult life in capitalist societies. Work experience and the level of income derived from employment shape beliefs, values, and health behavior. Governments should structure tax and employment policy to discourage insecure forms of employment. Fairer workplace and unemployment policies are needed in many countries. In one sentence, reflect on what you have learned about employment, working conditions, and health.